All right. Good old abrupt beginning for old time's sake.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. For those watching on the stream, I'm going to be a little bit bouncy here today because with the current setup that I'm visiting family and I've been banished to the back room to do such things, and I've been able to put together a little workstation here, but I literally have my laptop on my lap with my camera balanced on my laptop.
You couldn't find like a TV tray or something?
TV what decade are you living in? Who has TV trays?
What do you call them now?
It's funny you say that because I actually thought of that too. I was like, I wonder if they have a TV tray or something I can use. But no, that's had I had a little more forethought into this, Mark, I would have come up with something.
Yep.
Hello, everybody. Mark, it's been a while since we've broadcasted.
Yeah, that's right. Like... I mean, we talked briefly about the card counter, on your last or second to last podcast. But to actually sit down and talk movies and TV, it's been a while. Yeah,
it has been a while. Speaking of our little preview, I was surprised to have been given a interview with Joe Stapleton, which was the last release. What did you think of that interview? I know, having seen the movie and knowing a lot of the context that went into my questions, what did you think about how he represented the movie and his thoughts on it?
It was great because you could tell he approached it the same way kind of we do when we criticize a movie. He was thinking of that, right? At the time, like, what are my friends going to think, right? After this, he's actually thinking of that, getting things right. And he's seen enough TV and movies to know the things that they get wrong.
Yeah.
And, I thought it was great. Yeah, the way that he was talking about how he not only talked with Paul Schrader, but the actors, and even in particular scenes, hey, where people are sitting, or here's what it's supposed to be. And even when you mentioned the comment that I had about the movie, which really was so minor, but, in the story, the guy was saying, so it went check, raise, re-raise, and that's wrong. It should have gone check, bet. He made a great point, and I hope... But he said, this is maybe the way somebody would tell the story.
Right.
Even somebody who plays poker a lot might kind of misspeak because you understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
So, I definitely, agree with that. So, my nitpick can be completely thrown away. And no, I thought it was a great interview, mainly because he seemed like one of us.
Yes.
When it came to running to get things right in the movie. Yeah.
Yes. I was glad to hear. I was glad to hear him sort of admit to that, and because, like I mentioned in my conversation with him, I mean, we all wish we could somehow influence how gambling's depicted in a movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it must have been so cool to finally have had that opportunity. And I imagine to a very big extent, wanted to make sure he got it right. It wasn't like he knew. There's some things like Paul Schrader's just going to tell you he doesn't care about.
Right. I love that part too. It's like, okay, the director, he's got a story he wants to tell.
Yeah.
And so, maybe there are times where he just, I don't care. Okay, that's not going to be completely accurate, but I don't think he said that verbatim. But even when it came down to the title of the movie, it was clear that it was brought to Schrader's attention that, hey, wait a second. Okay, yeah, he counts cards, but that's not really... you don't count cards in poker, and there's more poker in blackjack. But Paul Schrader liked the title. I mean, it's a good title. It's just, until you see the movie, it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, good interview.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, this is my first time ever participating in a 33 pool put on by a listener and friend, Ed O'Connor, who is I think at Scan20 on Scan720, I think, on Twitter. I've been waiting for a long time to be allowed into this. I've been on the waiting list for a long time. I am privileged to say that I won in my very first week.
Congratulations,
Tim. Thank you. It was it's funny how sequencing in game. So this is something I think we need to talk about in another conversation, you, me, and a few other gamblers, how sequencing and gambling impacts your excitement about the result. And what I mean by that is, So I had the Kansas City Chiefs. So for those who don't know, 33 pool, you get randomly assigned a team. If they win and score 33 points,
exactly.
Exactly 33 points,
right.
You win the pot for that week.
Yeah.
And it splits for it. So this week there happened to be 2 winners, myself and the other newbie for the year. We both won this week. First week on the job, and we win.
Yeah.
He probably was ecstatic to find out that he won and split the pot. I felt a little slight bit of disappointment.
Of course,
that I had to split the pot. I didn't even realize it until I watched the game, and it didn't even dawn on me that I was splitting the pot until this morning. I saw my winnings come through. I was like, that doesn't seem like enough. And then I was like, oh wait, and I looked at the game. And so it's interesting how I went into last night's game thinking I won the pot, and then learned I had to split it. Where if it was the other way around, to where I was like, oh, someone already won it. Oh snap, I get part of it. That sequence would like it. So when you apply it to other gambling moments, like when the idea of is it better to like the psychological difference of being up and then cashing out at break even, or being down and then cashing up break even, just like how different that experience is. And the only difference is the sequence of being up and down, right? And so I think sequencing within gambling is a really fascinating topic to discuss, but that's for another day. I got the Kansas City Chiefs. I knew right away, because here's the thing is, when you get assigned one of these teams, you need to feel confident that it's a team that can win, first of all, and can score more than 30 points, which in today's NFL isn't as difficult as it once was.
That's correct.
But it's, as we've seen, as you can imagine, not every team can score past 24 points, right, or reliably, right? So it's fun to finally be in this pool, and it's nice to have won. So
you said you watched the Las Vegas Baltimore game last night?
I did, but I was so ready for it to be over. I didn't even. So like, I probably left the room before the score was even updated on the screen. And I just had not done, like, I did not even think about the implications of what a touchdown for the Raiders or either team. Or either team.
Yeah, it's probably good that you didn't, because you would have been going crazy. I don't know if you watched the whole rest of the game, but that overtime was insane.
Yes.
And it didn't even occur to me that 33 was still in the mix. I was just kind of caught up in the game. And you're talking about how certain things have to happen. And in this, in OT, when if you score a touchdown, there's no extra point. You don't go for an extra point. You don't go for, there's nothing extra. Whereas if in regulation, if you score a touchdown and, the clock is at 0, you still kick the extra point. Right. That is kind of a difference. And if they had to kick the extra point, the other player that you were up against, wouldn't have had 33. They would have had 34 probably.
Exactly.
It wouldn't have mattered. But anyway, little things.
Yeah. I'm still yet to get a royal flush in video poker, but I can say that I've won at least one time in the 33 pool. So
good for you. Let me see. I think I've got it here. How many times Mike and I have won? Yeah, here it is. No times have we won in the 33 pool that we've been in many years now. Since Ed started.
Wow. Anyhow, this is the only thing I'm doing this year in the NFL too. When it comes, so that was a little added bonus, right, to that whole thing. Is like, I decided to only do the 33 pool once Ed told me that I could get in. And it's nice that it's already paid off.
That is good. I'm glad you said that, because I didn't really think consciously about it, but we're not doing anything really this year. We're not in any survivor pools. I know you and Eric did like the Circa thing last year, right? And you're not doing that this year, right?
We did 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. Well, no, because Circa opened last year.
We did then it wasn't Circa. It was
did another one.
It must have been the Super Contest.
Okay.
You're right.
The Super Contest at
Westgate. Because Eric wasn't on the show a year ago.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it had to have been 2 years ago, but you're right. It couldn't have been Circa in that circumstance. So it had to have been the Super Contest.
Okay, good. We got that straight.
Yeah. Everybody was like, just shut up and start talking about luck, for crying out loud. Okay, we're here to talk about the show Luck. The way that this is going to work out, we're going to talk about 2 episodes today. probably do every other episode on luck. So next episode will not be about this show, but then the next episode we will do 2 or 3 more episodes.
Yeah, we'll see how many episodes, but yeah. Good.
This show came out in 2011. 9 episodes were released, and then it was originally set to obviously go for a second season, but there was this huge controversy with the health and deaths of horses involved, and there just was no way that bad PR was going to let that show thrive, right? So they had to cancel the show. It's still considered, from a lot of people who see it, a good show. I mean, even though it's only had 9 episodes, you know, a lot of people sort of, you know, the tragedy of the horses notwithstanding, feel like it was a good program. It's a show, I don't know if you felt this way, Mark, watching it. It is a show, it's one of those shows where you find yourself constantly going, oh, it's that guy. Like, I feel like,
sure, yeah.
I feel like so many of the actors are recognizable. They're people that have been in enough things, whether big or small, that you recognize a lot of the actors.
Yes.
But Dustin Hoffman, of course, is the lead actor. Dennis Farina, right? Yeah,
Farina, yeah.
Who my favorite performance from him was in Snatch. Nick Nolte's in this. There's, I mean, and I can go up. Richard Kind, who I forgot was in this, is in this. Who's one of those like characters or actors you see in a bunch of stuff, even though he doesn't have big roles. He's just like constantly in everything.
Right.
So a very good program in that way. We're 2 episodes in. I know this is your first time through. This feels like a first time through for me, because even going into the second episode, I found myself going, I don't remember what happens here. What was your first, like, are you enjoying it? I guess I'll just say, like,
yes.
After you watch the first episode, were you like, okay, I'm interested?
Definitely. After I watched the first episode, I thought, okay, this is a good show. It's well written. It's well acted. It's intriguing. No, I definitely enjoyed it. One thing about the first episode, and almost about the first 2 episodes, I was surprised that the focus really isn't on Dustin Hoffman, even though he's the lead.
Yeah.
It's certainly the first episode, the focus is on these horse players, these amateur horse players, and, you know, their lives and trying to hit a pick 6 and that kind of thing. And I'm not complaining, because I thought I enjoyed that part of the story probably more than, you know, Dustin Hoffman's part of the story. Although, again, we haven't really gotten real deep into that yet.
I don't know. I've never watched anything from the writers, the producers about this, so I don't know a lot of the creative aspects of it. But I appreciate that they have this set of gamblers at the front of the show, even though the pull was definitely Dustin Hoffman, even though he's considered the lead character.
Yeah,
I love that they're sort of their little group is sort of what carries the show, because I think a show that is about horse racing and ultimately the story arc, as you learn in the first episode, is going to be about Dustin Hoffman's character, who gets released from jail, and he's looking to acquire a horse. He's looking to build a casino. These are things start sort of learning about his character. I mean, I can't imagine, after watching 2 episodes again and thinking about how this like progresses, now that I think about sort of what I can remember about the series, I can't imagine that storyline would carry itself, right? It's this group of degenerates that really make the show entertaining and make
I agree. And you know, some of it is, okay, you've got Dustin Hoffman, who's maybe kind of mobbed up. He's looking for revenge. He went to prison, but basically he is looking for revenge on the people that he went to prison for. Yes. He was not guilty of what he went to prison for. And not a lot of us can relate to that. But these guys grinding it out, you know, at the racetrack every day and looking at the racing form and trying to hit this, you know, these big hits and the arguments between them and that kind of thing, that's more relatable. It's certainly, I think, a more entertaining story at this point. Again, we're only 2 episodes in.
Yep. So again, no timestamps, as we'll just, because we're going through the program as a whole. Probably going to touch on a few things that aren't necessarily gambling related, simply because we are touching on the entire series. And I think it's worth touching on some of the plot points from time to time. Dustin Hoffman, first we see him get released out of jail. He's referred to as Ace. We quickly learn that this is that this is his nickname. Boy, what a comment! I mean, if you get the nickname Ace, you're like, cool nickname, also kind of trite. But you get the nickname. I mean, very few of us get as cool of a nickname as Ace, right?
Right, unless it were sarcastic. Yeah.
Right.
Nice hand, Ace.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dennis Farina, who goes by the Greek, is his driver, essentially his sort of second hand or right hand man, if you will. And they start discussing ownership for a horse. Dustin Farina's character, the Greek, has gotten his license to be a horse owner. They're going down this trajectory. They set up this story arc of them acquiring a horse.
Right. So Dennis Farina's character is basically a front, because Dustin Hoffman is really the owner of the horse. It turns out that Farina won this big jackpot on a slot machine that was apparently arranged. And, he is technically, legally the owner of the horse, but really it's going to be Dustin Hoffman's character, Ace, that's pulling the strings.
Right. Who, as you can imagine, can't, because he's a felon. Felons, so that's the obvious workaround there.
Yep.
Something I was curious. So at the very front of this this episode, they show shots of San Manuel, and then everything from that point on is at Santa Anita.
Okay.
I don't know if you caught that.
No, I didn't.
So at the very like the first shots that we see of tracks after Dustin Hoffman gets released from jail, there's a couple quick shots and San Manuel branding is like on the horse track screen and stuff like that. And then after that, we only see Santa Anita track stuff.
See, the thing is, I don't think there's a San Manuel racetrack.
No.
And I'm guessing that maybe the San Manuel, it's just advertising at Santa Anita.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing is actually the case.
Oh,
because
that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah, San Manuel is a casino, and
right.
A tribal casino down here. I'm guessing that's probably.
Is Santa Anita only a track?
Or that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I know that Hollywood Park, when it was a track, had a casino along with it, basically a card room. I'm going to look it up so that we get this right. But I don't think Santa Anita has a casino attached to it. I'll check, or a card room or anything.
Okay. So we learned that there's a $2.6 million pick six going on at Santa Anita, and this is pick the three correct or picked winners in 6 races. You win this jackpot. You later learn that for people who are like unfamiliar with it, you later learn that the jackpot is dependent on the odds of the horse in the last race, but it could be up to $2.6 million. And we meet this little group of degenerates. I don't want to call them all degenerates, but they're gamblers, and the show definitely tries to make you feel that at least a few of them are degenerates.
Yeah.
And they all try to sort of find ways to contribute monetarily to the pool, but it's ultimately Jerry, who is identified as a degenerate from a few of the characters, who apparently is a sharp horse handicapper that makes his picks for the first race, or for the set of races.
Right.
The thing they really focus on going into most of before they sort of get into the latter part of the races is how he only picked one horse in the 4th race, I think it was.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So the strategy on this obviously would be to have multiple tickets that have multiple trajectories of winners, right? Like, if you want 2, 3, and 6 horse in one in the first race, the 4, 5, 9 horse, and the idea is to have so many different options that one ticket sort of squeaks through. Right. But the characters were concerned that he chose one horse in the 4th. So every ticket they had, regardless of its different sort of way it was going through with the picks in the other races, in the 4th he had just had that one horse. And I really appreciated this, because this was a huge nod to game theory, because he chose this horse because he trusted the owner, who I guess hadn't had a horse on the track in a couple years, or I can't remember exactly why the other characters were skeptical, but he really believed in the owner. And because the skepticism would have been had by everybody else involved in the pick six, it would have knocked a huge chunk of who's involved in the pick six pool out of it.
Yeah.
Really great look into game theory, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, I like that. I think that a lot of players who play the pick six too kind of like to pick all the horses in the last race. So if they make it that far, they know they're going to win. It's not necessarily a good strategy, but I think psychologically they want to. The team here didn't do that, but they were talking about how they wanted a relative long shot to win the final race because that would reduce the number of winning tickets and make their payoff bigger.
I thought
did they have everything?
I think they had all in the last race.
Okay, maybe they did. I may be misremembering. So yeah, okay, if they did, so they're guaranteed a win, but they still are hoping for long shots to win again, so that there'd be fewer winning tickets, and they'd have the biggest payoff. And so yeah.
Yep. I
watched this first episode a few weeks ago, so that's not as fresh in my mind as the second one.
So on the napkin that Jerry has it written, he has like 3 or 4 horses picked for every one of them, except for the one horse in the 5th, and then he just has all written on the last one. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
But you're right. They do get to the when it comes to the last one, I think they would win as little as 43,000 and as much as 2.6, depending on the range of the odds on that horse.
Yeah.
They as Ace and the Greek are entering the casino, you quickly learn that it reminded me of what was the movie we watched with James Caan, and it's
Vegas. Sorry,
Leaving Vegas?
Honeymoon in Vegas.
Honeymoon in Vegas. There we go. Sort of how like he showed up and just expected his suite to be available and everything. It reminded me very much of that. Like Dustin Hoffman shows up. They make jokes about the suite or whatever, and it's clear that he's getting set up with what he needs there. And they make the comment, "Man with a golden arm," and how he got that $5 million jackpot. We later learned that was arranged in a way so that way he would be the person who got that. Jerry is getting a loan from a security guard, 1,000 minimum with 3 points at 3 points a week. I thought this was I like that they got the jargon right here. If you're taking a loan from a shark or from a fellow player, that you often hear like how many points. That's just interest, right? I mean, that's so he's getting for every week that goes by, if you took that $1,000 loan, 3% interest piles on every week. But then he ultimately, instead of taking the loan, takes a simple $50 to then give the security guard his picks for the pick six, that we then learned that the security guard doesn't make.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, which I
talked himself out of it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I wasn't really quite sure. I didn't know why. Like it didn't. Maybe we learn more. I don't know. I don't know how deep they can get into this, but like you learn that he doesn't, and then the security guard makes another proposition to them later, but it didn't really clear why he doesn't make the picks.
That's true. It's
because he acknowledges that Jerry's a sharp handicapper, I think, at some point. And so it was kind of bizarre that he was willing to pay $50 for the picks, but then never did anything with them. I don't know.
That is strange because it is a plot point. At one point, the rest of the team are angry that Jerry gave him the pick, because they're thinking now, we're going to have to split this pick six money, with the security guard. So actually, I mean, that is some drama there for a while, but it doesn't pan out, like you said, because he didn't make the pick.
Yeah. But we do find, this was a line from Dennis Hoffman. He's in a meeting with someone and he just makes a comment. He's like, "I shrunk. All right, I got to get new shirts." And I don't know what it was about that line. It was such a throwaway line, but the way he delivers it, so it was funny. Just I need new shirts. We find out that they get to the final race. We find out that they've made it this far. They have no reason to believe that they have to split the pot with anybody, right? That doesn't seem that they've not picked up on the idea that maybe anybody else has this ticket. So they spend a good 3, 4, 5 minutes just on this like one plot, the plot point of them. There's the one guy who has no idea what's going on, and I love that kind of character in a gambling setting, right? Where he just doesn't quite understand how much we win or why.
Right.
But they can win as much as like 40 something thousand, or little as 40 something thousand, as much as 2.6 million. The long shot ends up coming through, and they quickly decide that they're going to try to like keep a low profile, because the local news is already there to interview the winners of the pick six. The track knows that someone won, right? They wrote the ticket, so they know that someone has it. But they're deciding not to go forward for that. This made me think of, and I want your thoughts here, maybe your experience. This made me think of when players win jackpots at the slot machine, and then they get their picture posted on social media, right? And how I remember we were in Biloxi, and I asked Rob and the other guys, like, would you ever do this? And we all agreed no. Like, have you ever like got a hand pay or something that was big enough that the casino asked to take a photo for social media? And if you haven't, like, would you do it? I wouldn't.
No, I've never been in that position.
Okay.
If it were a very large amount, I'd probably be less likely. You know what I mean? If it was like $10,000, like whatever. But if it's 2 million, it's like, no, I don't want to be a part of it.
Anybody knowing that.
Yeah. And well, on top of that, they don't want anybody to know, certainly initially, and they want to try to figure out, okay, what are we going to do about taxes? Because they just don't know. They're trying to, they want to have some time to think about how they're going to deal with all this money.
Right. So something I have this. Something that happens in that last race where they win is the worst part of the entire freaking show.
Okay.
It's when the horse breaks its leg.
Oh, worst part. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's the worst part of the whole series is it. Like, I knew it was coming, and I was like constantly trying to do this, right? Like, I was trying to anticipate it enough where I could pull away, because you, me, even Joe on the last admitted, like, there's a lot of reasons why we don't like the sport anymore. We enjoy it for a lot of reasons, but ultimately it's tough to support it. And this is one of the reasons is a horse gets run to death until it can't no more. And then it's cheaper to just put it down than it is to try to give it a life again.
Yeah. And, I didn't know that it was coming. And it's sort of ironic, if that's the right word, that this is why the show was shut down.
Yeah.
Even though, obviously, when you see the horse break its leg, they're using special effects, CGI or whatever. It's not a real situation. But still, to think that, okay, this happened. This does happen. This happened, making this show. That's rough. Yep.
Yeah. So if you have not, something we've heard, Tim Kennedy left this comment for us on our stuff, and I'm gonna actually take it to heart until someone says otherwise. He said, "Don't worry about spoilers. If they decided not to watch it before listening to the podcast, it's kind of on them." And I actually think that's a good point. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah. So, in this case, we're talking about episodic television.
Sure.
So what we don't give away the ending to each episode, but then we pick up the next episode.
Right.
Yeah. It's different than talking about a movie. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched it and just heard us talk about that, now you can be prepared. That it's difficult to see.
Yeah.
Even though it's not real. Yeah. So the group of gamblers, they win the pick six, and they are they're trying to keep this low profile. They're, like I said, they're trying to figure out what to do with taxes. There's one gentleman who feels like kind of not the leader of the group, but sort of the lightning rod. Not the lightning rod, that's not the right word for it either.
He's like the leader. He's like the Mo of the Three Stooges, right? It's like, he's the guy. Yeah.
He's very adamant that the other guys don't mess this up, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of them.
There's really 4 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 4 of them.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody can hear this. I'm on a military base right now, and they just got done.
I heard it.
Yeah, they're playing taps right now. So if anybody can hear that, go ahead and stand up.
Just pretend it's it's whatever the bugler does at the beginning of the horse race. I don't know what the name of this song is. Just pretend that was what you heard.
What is that? I don't even know.
We should, but
that's good. Yeah, we should.
Oh well.
Oh well.
I will say this, as I'm watching this show, I'm thinking, wow, they sure got horse racing right. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know a lot of it. I'm not an expert on horse racing. So, maybe they didn't get everything right, but it sure seems like they're getting it right.
Yeah. By the way, this happens every day, Monday through Sunday, which is, I guess, fine in the evening. But imagine like Saturday morning, and you just want to sleep in, and stupid Reveille plays at 7:30 in the morning, wakes everybody up. But it's like, this is 2021. We all have our own alarms. We don't need Reveille to play to wake us all up, right? Like, but the military and its traditions. All right, that's actually kind of all I have for episode 1.
I'm looking here. There's one quote here. I love when people talk about chalk. I'm fascinated by what does chalk mean. But when they're watching the race, that final race, they want the number 2 horse to win. And one of them is saying, is the 2 drifting out or the chalk now? Is the 2 drifting out or the chalk? And I love that, because it's like, okay, the 2, that's who they want, the long shot. The chalk, that's the favorite. Yep. And, that's just the way that they're talking. So I like that. I like they put that line in. I think that's it for the first show. I'll have some general comments about both episodes, but that's all I have specifically for the first one. Yeah.
I guess one thing that gets mentioned that I didn't bring up that's worth bringing up for the context of the next episode, the Degenerate who handicaps horses and essentially was the person responsible for picking all these winners. He admits to losing his track winnings previously in a poker game. So we go into him making these picks, learning that he plays poker, and as far as we know, recently lost. Which gets kind of which carries on into episode 2. So Jerry, who is the guy. So I think what's interesting about this, right, is Jerry essentially went into this with no money, right? So if you don't watch it, you just hear that a group of guys won the pick 6, but it was on one guy's picks. You'd be like, what? Jerry didn't put any money in. His contribution was the picks. Yeah. And so I think I like that they showed, like, he wouldn't have made any money because he couldn't have afforded the tickets for it, right? They wouldn't have made any money because they wouldn't have handicapped right? So I liked that you have this group of guys, some guys floated the money for it. One guy makes the picks, and there was no arguing, right? That's I was kind of expecting there to be some sort of like backstabbing attempt at like someone getting a little more than someone else, but nope, they're just like, all right, we did it.
It's actually refreshing that there wasn't any of that.
Yeah, and
it's something else you learn about them as these gamblers. That's the unwritten rule, or that's the agreement. That's the arrangement.
Yep. So we episode 2, Jerry's playing at Hustler's Casino. Good, nice little shot of the Hustler Casino felt there.
Yep.
He loses a very contentious hand to what we assume is a card room regular that he has seen many times.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of trash talking and banter during this hand. Jerry ultimately loses his straight to his foe's flush. I was paying more attention to the narrative. I didn't really pay attention to the poker. Did you notice anything about the game worth mentioning here?
No, it looked fine to me. Yeah. Okay. No, it looked very good. Yeah.
Ace is working on a scheme to open a casino in Sacramento. Here's something that I was having a hard time tracking, or thought maybe I missed in episode 1 or didn't pick up in how did they plan on opening casino gaming isn't legal outside of tribal casinos.
And they even mention it in the episode, in the second episode. So,
right.
But I know what you're getting at. It doesn't, I don't know how they're going to do it. If they've got some legislators in their pocket or something that they're going to that wasn't clear how that was going to happen, because Ace actually does say, they're not legal right now, but that is his plan. So no, I'm not sure exactly how he's going to carry it out.
Yeah, so that question's definitely there, especially if you're someone who's familiar with gaming in California. Um, the gentleman, I should just get his character's name right, 'cause I'm gonna refer to him multiple times. Kevin Dunn playing Marcus.
Marcus, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Marcus is starting to get upset at the other gamblers in this group because they are not being subtle about the fact that they have won a good sum of money.
Yep.
And he is very both for safety and, as you mentioned, tax reasons, very concerned that people may catch into why they have this money, right? Like, I actually kind of like that that he's smart enough to know it's not going to take too much figuring out to think a pick six was just won by a group of people, and these guys are always at the track, and now they have a bunch of money, right? I like that there's a character who was quick enough to be like, that's not going to be difficult for people to figure out. And he is very concerned. One guy has one guy has a suit that he's worried about. One guy wants to claim a horse that's going to cost some money. Jerry keeps on going to the poker table and is playing at a higher level than he normally does, and Marcus is concerned that that's going to be tipping off too many people. So there's already sort of a challenge within the group for Marcus is, there's only so much Marcus do. Marcus is in a wheelchair, so it's not like he doesn't have any sort of physical prowess over these guys. He can really only use his words, which are very crude and insulting. And let's face it, the show does a good job of showing that this set of gamblers got lucky in a lot of ways here. They're not the most prudent people with money.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. What do we got here? We then get to a claim race, which I thought was a really cool thing for them to add in here.
Agreed.
I only sort of knew this in theory ahead of time, going into watching this. Like when I said claim race, I thought I had an idea, but they do a decent job, I think, of explaining it. What I didn't pick up on, and maybe you know more about this, how does a horse become a horse in a claim race? Does the owner just say, I'm putting this horse up for claim? Or...
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
They just run it in a claim race. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the claim race being, if you want to own a horse, owners who are looking to offload a horse that either isn't bringing in the value they think they might, or for whatever reason, put their horses in a claim race. You put in the claim before the race, and the claim holds after the race, regardless of results. At least that's what they claim in the show. There may be, I'm sure there's probably more nuance to it in real life, but and so one of the characters who, and I should probably also just learn this guy's name at this point. Where'd he go? Renzo, Richie Coster,
the one who,
he gets linked up with a possible potential trainer for this horse, who knows a little bit about who may know a little about this horse, to put in a claim for it. This horse is owned by Turo Escalante, who's played by John Ortiz, who may be the best performance through 2 episodes so far. Really fantastic character.
Yeah.
John Escalante is putting this horse in. So this was something I was having a hard time tracking as well. He has the horse in the race, and he has bandages on the front legs of this horse. And the guy that Renzo's working with even says he may be bluffing people here with that. Escalante then talks to Ace and is like, Ace in the Greek, and says he meets them. There's a possible transaction. They're working on a transaction for a different horse, but Escalante tips them off of saying, hey, you may want to put a little something on my guy here in the claim race.
Yeah.
And then the race is over, And Escalante's horse wins. This one that had the bandages on, that a bunch of people have bet on for different reasons, whether they were tipped off by Escalante or whatever reason. And then someone comes up and clips a claim tag on them, on the horse. And Escalante looks surprised and then frustrated, upset. And at first I was like, well, why'd you put the horse in a stupid claim race to begin with? And then you kind of figure out that, like, Escalante is a bettor, right? He is gambling on his horses based off of what he knows. And I think you start the show, and I'm curious if this is how you picked up on it too. It's almost there. He was trying to undersell this horse as a claim race horse, knowing the horse was going to beat the field to get a bigger payday on this horse, not expecting to then also lose the horse through a claim at the end of the race.
I think you got it. Yeah.
Okay.
I unless there's something I'm missing too. And again, I'm no horse racing expert, but yeah, I think you got it. That was his intent. He was trying to deceive people. And then he thought his deception was good enough that nobody would claim the horse. But in fact, two parties wanted to claim the horse. So
yes. Yeah. So Renzo and another gentleman had claims on the horse. The other guy ends up getting it. Renzo was very disappointed. He was going to give the horse to his friends. So like, it was almost kind of a sweet moment where, like, that's why he's disappointed, right? He had this like cool gift to give to his, like, can you imagine someone giving you a horse?
Yeah. He's sort of the four, he's sort of the sweet, maybe not so smart, of the four. And, he thought he was doing a favor for the group. So yeah, that was his intent. Yep.
But yeah, a cool little storyline, or part of the story to put in there with the claim race.
Yep.
And to your point, again, like, it's nice they're putting these industry things in this show, and getting them right. So the Greek makes a comment. This is the biggest bet I've made by $195. Which I think is a comment on the fact that he probably bet $5 on the $5 million jackpot that he won. I'm assuming.
Well, maybe, although it did. I'm trying to remember the exact line. Maybe that was it. I thought he was saying it was the most he'd ever spent on a horse bet, but maybe you're right. Maybe he is talking about the slot machine bet. Yeah,
maybe.
But you're right. That does come out that he just made a $200 bet on this horse, and it was $195 more than the bet he'd ever made before.
I didn't catch the odds on the horse. Did you catch the odds on the horse?
No, I don't think. Okay. No, I didn't either. Yeah.
I was looking for it. I wasn't willing to rewind to see if I'd missed it.
No, it might have been written somewhere, but I don't think anybody said it out loud. Yeah.
Okay. And then towards the end of the episode, Jerry is back at the poker tables, and I'm curious in your thoughts on definitely on how the money got introduced to this table. After losing a big hand to the same nemesis, we'll call him, Jerry buys in for even more.
Yeah, he just keeps going back.
He keeps going back. And then they cut to a scene where he brings in, looks like tens of thousands of dollars to match a bet made at the table. And the casino, the floor man who's running the game even notes they're making an exception for this situation only, as both parties have agreed to, and that this is like normal house rules will not be affected, and normal house rules goes back into place after the hand. And essentially, Jerry brought in a bunch of money to match a proposed large bet from his nemesis so he could call the bet. And the house allowed it. Do you feel like that worked out the way you would expect it to in a normal poker room?
Yeah, so let's back up a little bit and talk about the things that we hate about poker on TV and movies. Number one is the string bet, the string raise. That is where a character says, I see your $50 and I raise you $200. That's known as a string bet or a string raise. You're not allowed to do that. You have to just make one action, I raise. The idea being that if you say, I call your $50, then you can look for a reaction from the person that you're calling and then maybe raise or maybe not raise.
Right.
I do allow some slack there because that definitely does happen in real life in home games where the players just don't know that's not allowed. Right. It wouldn't fly at a casino, but it does happen in home games. So we'll let that fly sometimes. But something that we can't let fly is the situation where it's a no-limit game and one person says, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to raise $10,000. And the guy says, the other guy says, well, I don't have $10,000. Well, what do you have?
Yeah. How about that watch?
Yeah, something like that. That doesn't make any, and when you think about, well, first of all, it's not allowed, but it also doesn't make any sense, because all you have to do is be the guy with the most money at the table.
Right.
Say, $1 million. You could do that all night, and if nobody can call you $1 million, you'll win every single pot. In real poker, the most that you can risk, the most you can lose, is whatever's in front of you at the time.
Yep.
Okay. The only exception to that would be if both parties agreed to put in more money, and they both have to agree, and the amount. And this is what happened here. The two different parties, Jerry and his nemesis, have agreed. Yeah, his nemesis probably said, hey, what if I raise $25,000 or whatever it is? Would you call it? And both parties would have to agree, and the casino would have to agree in this case. And I'm going to tell you exactly what the floor said. They said, this is a house ruling for this hand only. By agreement of both players, cash not on the table at the beginning of the hand has now been put into action. So that is critical. And I love that they did that they knew, the creators of the show knew enough about poker to know this would have to be an exception. And that's exactly what happened here. And kudos to them. I think that was a great job that they did handling this poker situation to deal with, all the terrible times it's happened in movies where it's not agreed upon, or one guy's, bullying because he's got more money. So I'm really glad that they got this right.
Yeah. Jerry ends up winning the hand. So here's,
all right, let's talk about strategy, because that's a different thing. How realistic was that? What you're going to get at is how realistic was this situation?
So he has kings. He has pocket kings.
Right.
We learned he has pocket kings. At the time that they finally call the action and both players are in and they turn over their cards, we learn that Jerry has pocket kings. His nemesis has queen 10. And it's queen.
No,
10,
it's ace queen
or ace queen.
He has
You're right.
ace queen.
That's right. Ace queen, and it's like ace queen rag on the flop.
Yes.
So this is why I don't like. No, I don't think like. So here's what I'm asking. Here's what I'm wondering. I kept on trying to give Jerry the benefit of the doubt that he was a decent poker player and that he just was like this bad luck. Is this showing that no, he really is a degenerate chasing action? Because
it definitely shows that. And here's the other argument. I'm arguing that they got the mechanics right.
Right.
Okay. But now you're sitting back and saying, what? He called extra money with pocket kings when there's an ace on the flop? Forget about the guy ended up having, 2 pair.
Yeah.
Just any ace would have Jerry beat. So, yeah, we could talk forever about, oh, come on. Would anybody do this? Right? Yeah. It's a terrible move. He ends up, spiking a king on the river to win the hand with trip kings. Yep. But would anybody go for this? So that's a whole different argument. Yeah, it's a terrible, terrible call on Jerry's part at this point.
So I think at this point, in 2 episodes in, there's 9 episodes. I think that I think the message here is that Jerry is definitely a degenerate. That he's not an unlucky guy at poker, that he does truly make poor decisions at a poker table, and where I'm going to give him a little bit of the benefit of doubt in this scenario, he was definitely on tilt because of this guy.
Right.
So I guess you can make the argument maybe he doesn't force the issue with another player. Maybe it's because it's this guy and he was sick of being beaten and bullied by this guy I know I've seen poker players disbelieve that they're beaten because they believe that the other person's just bullying them and doesn't actually have a hand. And so I know that scenario happens, and I think Jerry's definitely the kind of guy that would fall for that or buy into that of like, he doesn't have it, he's just bullying me because he's been beating me all night, right?
Right.
So that's the benefit of the doubt that I give Jerry. But I do think that from the first word of him being called a degenerate by Marcus in the minute 10 in the first episode, And the fact that he kept on going back to the trunk of his car for more cash to buy in at higher stakes to keep on playing, I do think that he's a degenerate chasing action, and it manifested in the worst way ever, and a big hand against his poker nemesis.
Yeah, I mean, to give Jerry a little more credit too, we don't know what the history is that he has with this player.
Sure.
You know, maybe he has some reads on this player that, you know, he thought he was making the right move here. That could be, in fact, you know, in our poker tournament, You Can Bet on That poker tournament recently, I was in a hand, and on the river, the guy to my right bet. He hadn't been betting. I'd been betting the whole way. I can't remember exactly what I had, like second pair. I don't know. Not the greatest hand. Well, it turns out he's one of my card night buddies, and I know the way he plays. And if he had not been, I would have folded that hand. As it turns out, I made a call. It turns out he was bluffing or maybe making a big bet with not that great a hand, and I won the hand. Again, had it been anyone else, people that I didn't know, I would have folded that hand. So, you know, to give maybe some benefit of the doubt, he might have some history. But going back to what you're saying, yes, I think the writers of the show, I think the show is trying to show us he's a degenerate. I think that's the point.
By the way, shout out to Rando Shadowin, who
dominated our tournament.
Yes, he won the whole thing, right?
Yep.
And he got the bounty for you, for me and Mike.
And
Dr. Mike.
And he was on the table with me at one point. He could have taken me out too. There were a few hands there. Oh yeah, nobody could stop him. I mean, yeah, he was getting cards, but still, you know, even at that final table, it's like the final table didn't last very long because he had a huge chip lead and maintained it. Yeah, it was a great performance.
We were talking about in the Discord that if he got all 3 bounties, I would just have to have him on the Better Life by default. Like he's the next interview.
Everything, yeah. It's close.
Yeah, there we go. In any You Can Bet on That tournament, if someone gets all 3 bounties, you have a free. You're welcome on the Better Life to be a guest.
Good.
Great tournament. Sorry I was late. It was one of those days, like every day leading up to it, I kept on thinking, Sunday's a tournament. And then Sunday happened and I completely forgot. Like it was like every day leading up to it, I was like, I can't forget that I have this tournament on Sunday. And then it was like, on Sunday, it hadn't even dawned on me that it was Sunday until you texted me. And I was like, oh crap, that's today.
I went to your table. It's like, sitting out, what's going on? And I was messaging the people on the table, I'm not sure why Tim's not here, and I was concerned. Because
I'm glad he messaged me because I didn't actually have much going on that day. I forgot that it was Sunday. So I hopped in there. A bunch of people were able to hop in the Discord, and it was fun. I can't remember what hand he beat me on, but I can't remember the specifics, but I do remember I had like ace king or something like that. I was a little shorter in chips. I was just looking for a good opportunity to push with a strong hand. I got ace king, I think, and then I don't remember exactly what hit the board, but I ended up getting top pair. It looked like I was gonna win, and then he got a straight on the like whatever his I can't. There was a bunch of like middle cards, right? 6, 7, 8, that sort of stuff. He just happened to have the 5th card for the straight there. I even got excited. I was like, yes! And then I saw the chips go to him. I was like, what?
I know. It goes so fast.
He has this straight. I guess that does beat my pair of aces. Okay, so that is the first 2 episodes of Luck. What's if you I don't know if you have an answer to this yet, if you want to pull up the cast to refresh, who is so far maybe your favorite performance of the show? Like which character you really feel like is carrying their weight?
Okay, well for me it's Kevin Dunn as Marcus, the bitter, disabled horse player. Most people probably would know him from Veep. He was a major character in Veep with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, right? But he's playing this character very well. He's we're not exactly sure why he's so bitter, although the fact that he's in a wheelchair might have something to do with it. But yeah, like you said, he's almost the leader of this group. And is he likable? Not really, but I think he's a good character on the show. Yeah. How about you? You were saying maybe John Ortiz.
Yeah, I think for me right now it's John Ortiz playing Escalante. I think his aesthetic is just right. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
just like however they decided to do his hair and everything, his aesthetic is just works for me.
Yeah.
And I think he's doing a really good job of um uh his little dialogue between him and Dustin Hoffman's been really good. Like they're like being businessmen who don't trust each other, which is always an
Yeah.
interesting dynamic,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like they're
Yeah.
both determined to get to the end of the deal, but you can tell that neither of them really trust the other person.
Yeah.
So I think the dynamic he has with a few other characters is good. Richard Kind, who plays a jockey agent for one of the supporting cast, I think it might be my favorite character right now, because he's balancing this agent who's irritated with every jockey he works with, but he shows that he also empathizes with the challenges that a jockey has. So that he's doing a really good job at that character.
Yeah, we've talked about Richard Kind in the past, and I said that he basically plays the same character, no matter what he's in. But this is a great example of, he's still playing the same character, which is normally played for laughs. He does more comedy than anything else, but he's able to take this same character and drop him into this drama.
Yeah.
And whereas, I guess he's funny in a way in that he's kind of pathetic and, all over the place and worries like crazy. It's still the Richard Kind character, but he's doing a great job in this role. Yeah.
Yep. Something I forgot to put on my notes, but I know I thought of and wanted to bring it up. And something that I've said out loud to a number of people in this community and have gotten different responses from people each time. And I'm curious your thoughts at a macro level. We don't have to get into the micro of this, but when Marcus is frustrated with some of his we'll call his teammates, his friends, like he's being nasty and crude with them, and one of them maybe makes a comment, "You're just afraid of being alone," right? Like you're afraid, like, and someone told me one time, and I think I agree with them generally, and I've said this before, and like I said, I've gotten mixed reviews from people who've heard me say it. Gamblers are kind of miserable. Like the average gambler, I think, has a sense of misery either about their personality or that's kind of buried a little bit and is really easy to sort of manifest itself when things aren't going right in a way that's different from normal human emotion, I think. And I think there is a bit of loneliness that comes around with that. Being a gambler does sort of breed loneliness. Even though we have friends, we go to the tables and stuff together. I think I don't know if you've ever done this, Mark. I've definitely been at a table and been like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? why am I doing something else? Right? Like, there's obviously the losing of money that can create misery. There's the feeling of loss, right? Even not just the loss of money, but like I made a decision and I was incorrect about my decision. That's something we have to keep on facing over and over. There's the stereotyping, the stigma, the assumptions, all that sort of stuff. And I think that gamblers generally can kind of just be miserable people. Look at sports betting Twitter. I mean, you'll find misery up and down in anybody who's interacting in that sense. And it's not just that's on social media. I think that there's something that Steven speaks to the kind of person that is involved in this. How would you respond to that statement?
Well, yeah, and it's hard to make a sweeping statement, of course.
Sure.
Everybody's different, but I certainly understand that argument. I see it in a lot of people, a lot of gamblers that I know. You mentioned sports. I see that a lot in sports fans as well.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, they're miserable. How often on our show have we talked about how miserable we are in San Diego, right? I mean, it's almost like we enjoy saying that more than, when good things happen. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I know I'm kind of rambling now. I definitely do see that as an aspect to a lot of gamblers. Yeah, they're just, and even when they're telling stories, it seems like they're more passionate when they're telling stories about bad beats than they are about successes,
And what do they say? Misery loves company.
Right. And that kind of goes back to losing hurts more than winning feels good, and again, this goes back to sports. So yeah, I can certainly. I'm not going to argue the other side necessarily, other than to say, yeah, we're all different. But yeah,
Yes,
I
and
sure, I
it's
understand.
a macro statement, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not that if you're listening, don't. I hope no one thinks like, oh, is Tim talking about me? I've never thought about any individual this way.
No,
I
and
just sort of
this is something we love. I mean, we've got podcasts devoted to it, for crying out loud. The last thing we want to do is, alienate people, because we're part of this, and we've gone through this kind of, like you said. Yeah, I have been, especially in Vegas. I have been. It's like, what am I doing at this table? I should just go to bed right now. Right?
Yeah.
You do get to that point. So sure.
Yeah. Okay. We got the best performances. Let's go with let's wrap up. What's sort of a development you're hoping to see in the next couple episodes?
Gosh, I don't know. That's a good question. I like the way that the show is teaching you about horse racing, because it's not in your in your face. It's not like a lesson that you're learning every time. So I want a little bit more of that. Maybe some of the nuances of horse racing that I'm not familiar with. And again, I'm no expert, but I hope maybe to see that a little bit. How about you?
You mentioned earlier maybe getting more of Marcus's story on why he's
Yeah, some
so
background.
bitter.
Yeah.
I'd like to get a little bit more on sort of Escalante as a like, is he more of a bettor, or is he more of a like a horse trainer? Like, which one is he more of? Like, we know that he's betting on these horses based on what he knows of his horses compared to the field. We obviously know that he's a talented trainer because his horses are performing well. But I'm curious if he's a bettor who found an angle in horses, and that's why he got in the industry, or he realized he's so good at understanding horses, he turned into becoming a bettor. Like which one's more true? So I want to get a little bit more out of his story.
I'd like to see a little bit more about Jerry, maybe Jerry's background, but I am kind of anticipating Jerry to go to a very dark place here before too long, because okay, we've determined he's a degenerate. Well, he won this huge hand with a 2-outer on the river. And, is that good for a degenerate? Well, no, it's not, right? He's convinced himself that he did the right thing. And I'm anticipating things are going to go poorly for him.
So Jerry is a really great example. Going back to the misery of being a gambler, and I'm sure people are listening like, Tim, but you're like, this is the better life. Why are you talking us out of this? That's not what I'm doing. When I was at Bet Bash, there was a gentleman who I know does not really play table games, who isn't a casino gamer. He bets on sports professionally, not as a recreation.
Yeah.
He even commented, he's like, something I appreciate about your podcast is the reality of being a gambler, right? And I think that it's important to be mindful of this, to make sure that we don't become one of these people, right? Or we can hope to not go down that path.
Yeah.
Something that I think Jerry's character shows, and I know we have all been there, when you win big on a big gamble, or you come back in a big way after a big loss, it's not even a good feeling. It's just relief, right? Like, that's all it is. Like, there's not even really excitement, right? It's all just relief. Like, cortisol stops pumping through your brain, and you just sort of, but it's like, it's almost difficult to be excited because you know how close you were to being completely bust, right?
Yeah.
And so I think they show him obviously being excited in that moment where he wins a hand, but I think that spoke a little bit more to how he felt about the guy he was playing against and not the hand itself. But then you also just sort of see that sense of relief of like, okay, I put it all out there and it worked out somehow. And I think that aspect of being a gambler is really fascinating to see depicted in this show. Because I think we've all been there. You're down at the craps table, you get this rally back, and it's exciting while it's happening. But then once it's done, it's not exciting anymore. It's just a relief.
It happened to me 2 weeks ago at the craps table. Exactly the kind of thing. It's like, oh, wow, this is going to be my worst. And then all of a sudden, oh, yikes, I rolled like 8 9s in a row, and I had money on 9, and
perfect.
All the way back.
All the way back.
Yep.
Did you have any action NFL week 1?
Not really. You know, we had the under last night that we lost. So
yeah.
No, we really didn't. So
I had the Ravens a couple different ways, and
no, did you?
that clearly didn't work out. Yeah.
You know, well, go ahead, and then I have a couple more things about the show.
Well, you go first then.
Okay, so I just wanted to say a couple more things about the acting. Dustin Hoffman, again, even though we haven't seen him, I think he's great in this.
Yes.
Dennis Farina, the late great Dennis Farina. It's interesting because he usually plays a heavy, good or bad. You know, he can be on both sides, but usually he's kind of a heavy. And this is a little bit against type for him, right? Because he's kind of, you know, getting excited about making that $200 bets, and you know, oh, I own a horse. Yeah, I know I'm not really the owner. You know, he's kind of a gee whiz character here. He's doing a great job. We already talked about Kevin Dunn and Richard Kind, who are great. One last one, Gary Stevens plays a jockey. Gary Stevens is a jockey in real life, or was, and he's playing a jockey on this show. He plays Ronnie, the jockey, and he's not quite as good an actor as the rest of them. You know, when he first came on the scene in the first episode, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I didn't recognize him. So wait a minute, I don't think this is a regular actor, because he's not quite as good, but he's fine. So I think that's interesting that you know, they got a real jockey to play a jockey.
It's funny you say that, because now that I'm almost kicking myself for not realizing this, because he's one of the most recognizable jockeys in horse. Like anybody who's ever, like, even if you're someone who only watches the Kentucky Derby year after year, you've undoubtedly seen this man's face before.
Yeah, and he's a name, right? If you Gary Stevens, he's a name. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. What is that all you got?
One last thing I will say about this. The horse racing footage is fantastic. Some of the best that I've ever seen. That's why it's, you know, hard to really appreciate it, because you know that horses died. Oh, supposedly they were not injured during the sequences, you know, that were filmed, or, you know, the racing, that kind of thing. But I mean, really, this is some of the best footage, you know, POV footage. You're obviously, some shots are from a horse. You know, you're obviously galloping along. There's obviously a cameraman on a horse. Sometimes maybe it's a car to the side of them, but it's some of the best horse racing footage I've ever seen.
Something I'm really curious. So this came out 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We really haven't seen horse racing depicted at all in movies or television since. Not in a way where you would need to capture footage in the moment, right? Like maybe they show people at a track, sure.
Yeah, right.
But like there's nothing where like the production had to think, okay, how are we going to produce this race? And it's made me wonder if this obviously the horse racing industry has a black eye on it already, with the health of horses and now cheating scandals, apparently, possibly. It's made me wonder if producers are unwilling to go back there, knowing that there's a huge liability in the perception of depicting something like that, or what could happen at a. Of course, I may be a little over dramatic on evaluating this. Who would? I mean, it's not like horse racing is this huge topic that people are waiting for more content on. But
yeah,
I am curious if there's been, I'm wondering if there's scripts that are good that have been dismissed because of the topic of horse racing.
That's a good question. I'm sort of guessing that right now, filmmakers just aren't anxious to make movies about horse racing because it is kind of waning in popularity. I mean, you know, we had a couple Triple Crown winners here within the last 10 years, and that helped the reputation, but not enough, I don't think. You know, it's still waning. So I'm trying to think of, you know, to me, I may be forgetting some, but the last really big horse racing movie that I can think of was Seabiscuit, and that was almost 20 years ago. I can't think of anything.
20 years ago?
2003 was Seabiscuit. That, you know, it was a great book. They made a good movie out of it, and it's a fantastic story. But 2003, that was it. Yeah.
Okay, next time we do this, we are going to do more of a hodgepodge, what do you call it, mixed bag of episodes like we've done in the past, where of shows where there's an episode of a show that has it, or a scene, and we quickly talk about that. You have a fantastic spreadsheet that shows all of the that had anywhere where gambling or Vegas is mentioned in it. So I'm gonna go through that, find a couple that I like, and pick apart. So I'll tweet them out as they're coming. Of course, I'll let you know, Mark. So you
okay,
you
and I'll send you
contribute.
an update because I've updated that spreadsheet. So I'll do
Good.
that. I'll think of it right after this. Yep.
The one I know we're gonna talk about now that the season's over, Rick and Morty season 5 has finished. There's one episode that, in a very gross way, has a Vegas reference, a bunch of Vegas references, and there's enough that I was like, since we've done Rick and Morty in the past, I feel like we at least have to acknowledge some of the Vegas references in this episode. So if you're not caught up on Rick and Morty season 5, and you want, I can't remember which episode. I think it's episode 4 or 5 of the season.
Okay.
But yeah, that's definitely one. Ted Lasso. 8 episodes in so far, no gambling references.
No, not really. Yeah, I'm enjoying the season, of course, but no real gambling. Yeah,
which I'm really surprised, and this is why I'm surprised. They're doing a really great job nodding to English culture, and betting's a big part of English culture.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm surprised there hasn't been that they haven't referenced punters or at least use some sort of sort of jargon to make the reference, but. We got a few more episodes before the season's over, so hopefully we get.
Yeah, that's true, and there are obviously, there are some plot lines that they're obviously dealing with, this season that don't really lend themselves to gambling. So yeah, sure.
Yeah.
One show I would recommend to an episode that we can look at because there's something very specific that happens in it that I think you and I could talk about for a little while.
Okay.
It's the George Lopez show. The episode is called George's House of Cards.
Okay.
I'm trying to see the season number, but anyway, it has to do with poker, and there's something that happens in it that I want to talk about. So, George's House of Cards, the George Lopez show.
Okay, very good. We will include that, Rick and Morty, and I'll tweet out or an Instagram story, anything else we decide to watch. But yeah, next episode, grab bag of things, and then the following we'll do at least 2, maybe 3 episodes of luck, depending on how much we get out of each episode.
Yep, I agree.
All right, Mark. Thanks for watching,
thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
It's an awkward moment where I have to find the end broadcast button.